Hi, folks. Welcome back to the original church. Today we've got a pretty serious subject and one that is obviously politically and socially polarizing. But the question is, was the original church pro-life? Now, the first question you might think, did they even have abortion back in the ancient world in the time of the early church? And they did. And they had several methods. Usually it had to do with taking drugs that had varying degrees of effectiveness. But they did have abortion and they knew about it and it was a thing. But the question for today for us is, was the church pro-life? Was the original church pro-life? Did the church officially take a stand on this issue? Well, I think you know where this is going, and I think you know that it was. The original church was pro-life. And if I were to lay out all the documents by the church fathers that mention abortion, that oppose abortion, that criticize abortion, there would be too many to name them all. Now, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time quoting them all because they all pretty much say the same kind of stuff. You know how I don't really like proof texting the fathers anyway. You have to read them in context. So it wouldn't do any good, but I will say this, right? All of the apologists, those early Christian writers who were writing for a non-Christian audience, they were writing for outsiders to try and explain Christianity to them and to try and get the rest of the world to stop persecuting the church. All of the apologists wrote that abortion is murder, and they all criticized Roman culture heavily for allowing it. Now, what you have to understand is there is one thing that Christians and pagans could agree on, and that is this. Birth, the day of a person's birth, is no divider of life versus non-life or pre-human versus human. Both Christians and non-Christians saw that it made no difference whether the person was born or pre-born, because pagans said that you can kill the baby on either side of that divide. You can abort it in the womb or you can kill it right after it's born. That's your right if it's your kid, right? And the way that they would kill a baby after it was born was often something called exposure, just leaving it out on the garbage pile to die from exposure. They could also drown it in a bucket or just leave it in the trash. But basically, your choices at that point were abortion, or if it was born, then exposure or killing it some other way. And according to Roman culture, you were free to do that. And of course, as you might guess, it was mostly little girls who got aborted or killed that way. So they didn't care about preborn, born. And for the Christians, they also didn't care about preborn or born because they said that it was murder either way, whether the baby was born or the baby hadn't been born yet. To kill it is murder. Okay, now the reason that so many early Christian documents mention abortion is because the opposition to abortion and infanticide became one of the marks of early Christianity, of early Christian identity. And so you might say that in the original church, there were two marks of the definition of what a Christian was. One was doctrinal, right? The doctrine of the Trinity, and we've talked about that in other videos. But the other one was moral. The Christian morality and the expectations, the moral expectations of a Christian after baptism, that is what set Christians aside from the rest of society. So when it came to that morality, one of the most prevalent and one of the most important markers of Christian identity for the original church was to be against abortion, right? And so several of the early Christian writers will say, how do you know a Christian? Well, a Christian is someone who doesn't do these things, and top of the list is always abortion, right? We are the Christians. We share our food, but we don't share our wives, and we don't kill our children. And so this is why when I was writing my book, A Week in the Life of Rome, and I have the characters talk about these things, and when the Romans come around and say, well, Christianity, what is that? What is a Christian? Who are the Christians? The answer is, a Christian is someone who cannot walk by the garbage pile and hear crying and keep walking. Because the early Christians picked up these abandoned babies and they adopted them. That's what they did. Now, again, I know this is a very divisive issue, and I know that there are those who would say that a person can be a pro-choice Christian, but the original Christians did not think so. The original church did not think that it was possible to be both Christian and accept abortion as an option. And I want you to think of it like this, right? Imagine you lived in Nazi Germany. But they had voting, and you could either vote for the Nazi Party or against the Nazi Party. And imagine if you voted against the Nazi Party on the sole issue that their platform included the genocide of a whole group of people, right? And then imagine if people accused you of being a one-issue voter. What would you say to them? Well, you would probably say that this issue deserves to be a one-issue vote. And that's what we say. Abortion is the Nazis of our time. And if you think this analogy is too extreme, then you just don't get it. So to be on the pro-abortion side of this question is to be on the wrong side of history. The pro-life movement is the real civil rights cause of the late 20th and early 21st century. We are simply asking for human rights for the most vulnerable people we know of, the people still in the womb. And that's how it is. And that's how it was in the original church. Thanks for watching. Hey, thanks for watching. Well, you know the drill. Subscribe, notifications, blah, blah, blah. But if you liked this video, please share it. And if you want more, consider getting one or more of my books. Or better yet, join me and the original church community on locals.com. There you can comment and interact with the rest of us. I hope to see you there.